Himalayan mountains. He came like a storm. Johnny came from Sierra Leone, an African uniform, to fight for his queen. He said, in this country so cold, it's been a long...
Few stories resonate in the annals of Black history archives like that of Flight Lieutenant John Henry Smythe, a Sierra Leonean and British legend whose journey from the streets of Freetown to the skies of Europe exemplifies courage, resilience and extraordinary achievement. Born 1915 in Sierra Leone, John Henry Smythe was a Creole descendant of liberated Africans who were relocated to Sierra Leone by the British in the 1800s. In 1940, Europe was involved in World War II. Britain turned to its colonies in Africa and the Caribbean for people and resources to help fight the Nazis. Africa supplied Europeans with gold and cocoa from Ghana, diamonds from Sierra Leone and South Africa, tin from Nigeria, rubber from Uganda, oil from Trinidad and Aruba, and bauxite from Guyana and Jamaica. Billions of African and Caribbean people throughout the British Empire helped Britain via their labour. More than 600,000 African soldiers fought for the British in Africa, Burma and Malaysia. Johnny, as he was popularly known, volunteered to join the Royal Air Force Bomber Command. In the early 1940s, Bomber Command was being knocked out of the skies with a dead, wounded or captured rate of 60%. Johnny trained as a pilot, but due to his high level of mathematical skill, he was retrained as a navigator. Johnny achieved 27 flights before disaster struck. On the 18th November 1943, Johnny and his six-man crew of E-Easy were flying their short Stirling bomber plane with 14,000 pounds of bombs when they got into serious trouble over enemy territory. His plane was hit by anti-aircraft fire from the ground as well as by an enemy fighter plane. Johnny was hit twice, once in the stomach and once in the groin. He received 2 severe painful injuries, but he survived. At this time, the plane was on fire and full of smoke and thrashing around wildly. Facing near death, Johnny had to find his way out of the burning, smoke-filled aircraft at night while it was about to crash. For the crew to have a chance of surviving, there was only one option. The captain gave the order to bail, and he had to jump out of the doomed aircraft. This still carried great risk of death, however. He could be shot by more anti-aircraft fire, his parachute might not open, and if it did open, it could catch fire, and he could be hit by another aircraft or even by part of his own plane and die. Against all odds, Johnny escaped the aircraft and survived the 3,000-foot fall to the ground. This was remarkable because a parachute might open safely, but it was still possible to land on a church spire or a lamppost and be killed that way, or land on a steep roof, in water, in a tree and be strangled by the parachute rigging. Landing on the ground safely also carries the high risk of breaking one or both of your ankles. Johnny survived all of those possibilities. He hid his parachute and went on the run as the Germans would be hunting him. He stole a bicycle and rode to a barn, which he went into to get some rest. Someone reported seeing a light from a cigarette, and the German military soon arrived. After calling out in German and receiving no response, they fired shots into the barn. Not one bullet hit him, but he made the decision to give himself up. "It's too dangerous now," he told himself. With his hands up, he slowly approached the Germans. He knew he was still not safe, because as an enemy who had just been bombing the Germans, he could be shot on sight. However, when the German soldiers saw this tall African man in a Royal Air Force officer's uniform, who had just literally dropped out of the sky, they were astonished by his blackness and could not believe their eyes. They did not shoot him on sight, but took him to a nearby police station, where they brutally beat and interrogated him. His boots were taken off him and he had to walk in the snow. He survived his ordeal and was then taken to a hospital where his wounds were treated and 2 ribs removed. He was then sent to a prisoner of war camp called Stalag Luft I in Bata, East Germany. Although Johnny would work with other prisoners on escape committees, he himself would never attempt to escape. When asked by a reporter from the Times newspaper many years later why this was, with a glint in his eyes, he said, "I guess if I had escaped, I could have mingled with all the other 6'4" black men walking around Germany at the time." He survived a year and a half in the prison of war camp, a major achievement in itself, until it was liberated by the Russians in 1945. After even more adventures in the town of Bata, he returned to Britain. Johnny worked for the Colonial Office, defending servicemen who had gotten into trouble in court. A judge noticed the young man's flair for defence and suggested he train as a lawyer. He provided a letter of introduction to the Inns of Court, where he successfully qualified as a barrister. In 1948, he was a senior officer on board the Empire Windrush. The name Windrush, thanks to people like RAF World War II veteran Sam King and Arthur Torrington, came to symbolise a generation of Caribbean people who moved to Britain to help rebuild the nation after the devastation of World War II. Johnny played a pivotal role in the decision by the British government to allow these men to return to the country. Johnny returned to Sierra Leone in 1951 and worked for the government before he went on to become the Attorney General of Sierra Leone. During his tenure, he helped draft the laws for independence for his country as it broke away from the British Empire. Johnny toured the United States as a government official to observe their legal systems. During this time, he met President Kennedy in the White House and attended the famous Martin Luther King Civil Rights Rally in 1963. Additionally, he gave lectures at prestigious universities such as Harvard, Yale, Stanford, and Columbia. After a successful career with the government, Johnny established his law chambers and later became a Queen's Counsel. He had married his sweetheart Violet, and the couple were blessed with children and grandchildren. He would visit the UK every year for holidays, and upon retiring, he moved to Oxfordshire to live near his 2 sons. Johnny passed away in 1996, aged 81, and was buried at the church he attended with his wife in Thame, Oxfordshire. The remarkable story of John Henry Smythe symbolises the massive physical and material contributions that came from Africa and the Caribbean to help Britain win World War II, and the drive to survive, thrive, and achieve against all odds.
Henry Smythe's story has been told many times on Black History Walk's 16 walking tours across London and in their presentations on World War II at the Imperial War Museum. In November 2019, Tony Warner, founder of Black History Walks, interviewed Eddie Smythe, the son of John Henry Smythe, as part of the heroic black pilots of World War I and II events at the British Film Institute. In 2021, in a unique collaboration with Pearson Books, Tony Warner translated his Notting Hill walking tour into a GCSE History Migration exam textbook and insisted this photo and some of his story be included. This led to a huge increase in awareness of his story. Lavinia Stennett of the Black Curriculum, having attended a walk and heard the story, agreed to sponsor this animated video. There are many more such stories.
From the Lion Mountains